Hello, Augies Worldwide. Welcome to this week's live stream. It's Thursday evening. It's 01:45 UTC, and we're going to do another live stream. And I've got lots of questions. Lots and lots of people have been sending questions in, so we'll have plenty to go through. Let's see, we've got KG0OG from San Diego, and Mike KB7HFS says hello, and to all the Augies also. And Man of Means says he's KE6GNX, soon to be K6JSC, and that's cool. Let's see. Pete Dayton says KE0OG points out he's a private instrument rated pilot. And Warren P. in North Dakota says hi, as does Mike Smith, G0RFD. You're up late. It's almost 2 in the morning there. Let's say KN9POJ in Sandcut, Indiana. Don DeGidio says good evening from Philadelphia, WJ3U. Kevin Lehigh would like to know what are some things that cause microphone feedback and how to go about systematically sorting it out and fixing the problem. If you're talking about VOX, voice operated transmitting, there is actually an adjustment there to adjust how it's called the Vox cancellation, and it cancels the feedback in the mic. And I think that's probably what you're referring to, because if you were just operating with push to talk, you would not have that problem at all. So look in your instruction book under the VOX, Victor Oscar X-ray, and see what the adjustments are and make those adjustments, and it should fix the problem. Now, you may find if you move the microphone, you recreate the problem. So you may have to have a best position for that. Good evening from South Dakota. Felipe Lewis also says good evening, where we're having a blizzard that's supposed to last until 6 p.m. Friday. Oh my goodness. KE0OG. Dallas, Texas, WD4ETU, Hey from Sacramento, K6SDW, and good evening from Central Florida and from Michigan. And Joe Framo says, good to see you, laid up with COVID-19. Oh my goodness. Well, I hope you have a mild case. Most people do, but not all. It's getting personal now. It's gotten out here to western Colorado, and we know several people who have come down with COVID-19. And for example, one woman we know has the cough has lingered for quite a while, and so on. So, let's see. Ron from Pville. Son of a gun, found out tonight you cannot have too many fuses in the setup. Yes, you should have plenty. Nick Forkham says thank you for all the help and God bless. It's KD9FZD. Boyd, KO4GJO, says good evening from North Carolina. Andy, 2 Echo 0 Romeo Echo Echo, which would be the UK, and again, very early in the morning there. Pungo Breyer says he just passed his tech exam, waiting for the FCC to get me in their database. Thanks for the videos, they were a big help. I'm going to have some news about those videos tonight. Hello from Idaho. Vince says hi from Long Island. And Jean KB10 in Connecticut. My thoughts on ICOM 7300 is a backup radio. Well, I use it here as the primary radio in my station. It's a wonderful radio. Jonathan doesn't have his call sign yet. Hopes it will be very soon. Montana Joe. Hope you're feeling better. Yes, I'll talk about that too. And John in Phoenix. Kevin at KJ7EHQ. N6SC in Placerville. I've actually been to Placerville. My dad spent a year or two of his childhood years in Yosemite, as his father worked for the Yosemite Park and Curry Company, which has ancient history at this point. Good afternoon from New Zealand. Well, Gary Murdoch just upgraded to General and says best wishes. Hello from Benahex. Larry Wieberdink in Wisconsin. Max NG7M in Syracuse, Utah. Fredericksburg, Virginia from KC3KII. Bert Sharp, Longview, Texas. Charles Chuck rather, K6PWC. Thank you for the great amateur opcode video. Good. David, greetings from Alberta. Mark says hi from Roseburg, Oregon, Michigan. KI5FUN, lots of stuff here. Mount St. Helens country, yes, I've been there. It's impressive. Northeast Maryland, Western Pennsylvania, Manchester, New Hampshire, and the UK 2 Echo 0 Oscar Charlie Nancy. Stephen Schiff in GJ. What do I think of the Yaesu FTDX 3000? I have one. It's a marvelous radio. I do not consider it a beginner's radio. Ordered the Yaesu 101 MP, good value, or is the 7700 a better buy? I couldn't tell you. I made the reference station here. I wanted a radio that could, by some reasonable stretch of the imagination, be called a beginner's radio. And yet a radio that can last you for the first 10 years of your ham radio career. I have played with the 7600, which is a 7610 rather, is a very, very nice radio. Okay, I've moved the microphone around, played with Vox, reduced the gain, and got improvement. Was going to try putting ferrites on the wires on the mic in 7300. It may very well be if you have an RFI feedback problem into the mic. The best thing to help that is to properly ground the radio. So ground rod right outside the shack, a wire from your station ground down to, well, your shack ground down to the ground rod there, and I've got videos on that can help with that. That should help. Hello from Preston, WD4DDA, Maryland. Everyone from South Central Kentucky, a test for upgrades in 6 days. Wow. Benjamin Otto. Hello from Toronto, Canada, West Virginia. Hello, Dave and Augies from W2JLS. New ham, just programmed my first DMR code plug. Okay, that's exciting. KC3QHM, that's neat. Ronnie Settle. Bonsoir from Quebec, Canada. Victor Echo 2, Yankee Uniform Delta. And from sunny Arizona, 75 degrees today. Well, it certainly wasn't that here. Best frequency to reach you from Alaska. Well, I could go anywhere from 40 to 20, depending on the time of day, maybe even 80. Okay, good. John says that the videos really help supplement his study for tech in October and general in December. Congratulations. There's lots and lots and lots. Let's see. What are these codes? Craig Harrison asks. there's a lot of ham radio jargon. 73 means best wishes. DE is French for from. And since a lot of the international rules are based on the original French undertaking, DE has become the standard for saying, like if I were to call a friend, K0-123 or K0-ABC, DE, KE0OG, which is how you do it in Morse code. Okay, lots of stuff. Any recommendations for a used backup transmitter for my IC 7300? Why do you need a backup? 7300 is very reliable. But if you want something that you're going to take around, say for, hiking, mountain topping, something like that, there are a lot of things going on. Yes, the typewriter is over here because I'm using the entire desk for the QCX project, or the table over there. What's your opinion of the Icon 76 Pro 3? At one time, it was considered a top-of-the-line radio, but that was 20 years ago. It's an old radio. Wish you could send some of that to Philly. Yeah. Greetings from Atlanta. G90 hovers are 400. That's only a 20-watt radio there. What are your thoughts on an IC 718 for first HF rig? That is and has been for many years ICOM's beginner's rig. It's a perfectly good radio. It doesn't have a huge number of features that you'll find on the more modern radios, but it's far less expensive. So if you can't afford a 7300 and an ICOM 718 is in your future, it's a fine radio. The comparable radio from Yaesu is the 450, which a lot of people I've talked to really like. Can grounding my coax shield help with RFI from neighbors through the power lines? Possibly, depending on the situation. And KE0OG, Glenn, I passed my extra exam Tuesday. Congratulations. Is there a best gauge for a random wire antenna? About 100 watts. I'd go with 16 or 14 gauge wire. Would be fine for that. Okay. Well, it's getting close to time to start. I hope we get through a lot of questions today. And as usual, when we're doing the questions that come into the Ham Radio Answers email, I can't see all the comments. I appreciate all the comments, and I've noticed that a number of you have made friends with each other for on this chat here. That's great. Bought an ICOM 781 for nostalgia reasons. I like the older looking ones. Is it still okay to use? Yeah, it should be. Make sure your frequency adjustment is correct. Check it against, there's usually on the older radios a little dial position for WWV, so you can check to make sure that your frequency counter is correct. All of the newer radios are within, I think the 7300 here, I checked it when I checked its frequency, it was only 3 hertz off, which is something that would have been absolutely unheard of 30 or 40 years ago. I mean, there we calculated frequencies to the nearest kilohertz. Now we can do it down to the hertz. Let's see. Bought an ICOM. Okay, a 7300 with BTRX. Okay, except transmit, and then it overloads the software and radio. Yeah, it does that. There's a lot of power that comes on through when you do that. You're not going to be able to receive other stuff while you're transmitting, because your transmitter is just way overloading the front end of that SDR. You've got to understand the dynamic range on these SDRs is close to 100 dB. That's 10 with 10 more zeros added through it, the ratio between the highest signal and the lowest signal it can get. So even if you've got 60 dB of isolation, which is a lot of isolation, you still got a 40 dB signal, 40 dB over S9 signal to worry about there. Is there any harm in over choking a feed line? No, but don't wind them too tight. If you're going to make just a loop of coax, make it like this big around. I've seen people wrap it around pipe, plastic pipe, and so on. The problem with that is that you're exceeding the spec on the bend radius of the coax. Coax really isn't meant to make real tight turns. How do you connect your radios to antennas outside, through the window, through the wall? In my case, it's through the floor. I go down into the crawl space and then out into the backyard. Newbie noticed that on HF some days I get few or no received conversations on 20 and sometimes on all bands. Is that routine or do I have a problem? No, you do not have a problem with that. What you are seeing is either a radio blackout because of an unsettled geomagnetic field, and the past several days there have been no sunspots whatsoever, so there may not be much going on. 40 meters is your best bet during the day. If you do CW, 30. But other days it'll be just fine. That's the thing about ham radio that makes HF so challenging, is that it is constantly changing. So, okay, could it limit your signal? Let's see. 20 or 40 helps me narrow the list. Okay. Alaskan carry. Flesh out your question a little bit. I'm not sure what you're asking about. William Myers, KE0OG, says, Dave, longtime ham. Haven't been active for many years, but working on getting back into it. Well, good. Persevere. I'm glad you enjoy the vids. Okay. The fact that you have, well, the way I tell that I'm 4 hertz off of WWV is you tune WWV in sideband, okay, or CW, well, sideband best, sideband. And so if you move the WWV signal away from it, you'll hear the beat note. So you turn the frequency down till the beat note goes away, and then turn it past on the other side, because there would be several hertz in there where the beat note is so low you can't hear it. And then right in the middle of that is the what the radio thinks is 10 megahertz or whichever WWV signal that you're listening to. And that's how you can tell how far off your radio is. My Yaesu FTDX 3000 was like 5 hertz off. And there's a little adjustment you can make for it. Okay. Regarding my 7300 and SDR. Okay, good. DE is dotted it. Yeah, I wouldn't tap out from. You know, I'll tell you a secret. When I was first in ham radio, the DE was considered required. Nowadays, hams often will send first the call sign of the station they're talking to, and then immediately send their own call sign without any prosign in between. Which is, I don't know, that grates on me a little bit, but I don't really care. A lot of people do it. So, do you still use an W6 LVP or other loop antenna for receiving? Funny you should mention that. You can see the loop antenna right there. That's the MFJ, I think it's 1886. The part that broke, which is this part right here, this is the housing for it. The coax goes through here, and the two ends of the loop come in through here, and it got trashed by a large mammal, bear, Bigfoot, or a buck. I don't know. One of the bees got hold of that thing and trashed it. And this replacement part is supposed to come tomorrow, according to FedEx. So it's kind of an interesting story about that. I ordered it in mid-December, and it hasn't arrived. I thought, well, just Christmas season, you know. So I called MFJ and gave them the order number, and they hadn't really heard of it. So they said, well, they see who placed the order. They'll get in touch with them. Well, the next day I got the shipping data. So I think the order sat at MFJ for a month. It does pay to follow up gently. And then, let's see. I've got a message held for review here, which I'm going to hide. Do you have a recommendation for a reasonably priced CW paddle? Yes. By the way, if you get the, and what is this? What did I do with it? Oh, I put it somewhere. The bencher paddles are about half that, about 150. If you go to dcasler.com/reference, you will find in the list there a reference paddle. It's from, I think, MFJ or cwmorse.us. The CW Morse makes them. And it's about $40. And I think it would work just fine for you. Okay. Arrow antennas and elk antennas, good for satellite work. Yes, also diamond antennas. Okay. We can assume WWV is right on frequency. Yes, you can, by definition. WWV is connected to the NIST clock, the clock that sets the time for the nation. It is, by definition, by law, the nation's civil time. Now, the nation's military time comes from the Naval Observatory in Washington. And by the way, GPS time is military time, not civil time. However, the two organizations make a lot of effort to keep their clocks aligned within femtoseconds. So either one is fine. I have a little station clock right here that I got from QRP Labs. It's a GPS receiver right there, and it displays the signal down here. And that's a very nice, accurate clock. I like my electronic clocks to be super accurate. And then I have this beautiful analog clock up here, and if it's within 5 minutes, it's okay. Okay, we've gotten to past 7 o'clock. So, yes, it was Bigfoot. He needed replacement parts for his UFO. It is a commonly available conduit, but unfortunately, I could not find anywhere in Montrose at several stores this exact one. They all had something coming in here and then something coming out down here, and I couldn't find this exact one. And if I had found it, I would have to have drilled all these little holes. I'm very much hoping that the one from MFJ comes with the holes drilled. MLA 30 plus. No, I've done the W6 LVP, is that it? LPV. I've got that one, which is a portable antenna. You can take it down and kind of roll it up, and it makes a much smaller package. And then the MFJ one that's right there is a rigid tube. UMT, tick-tock, tick-tock, yes. Yes. It wouldn't be, ask Dave, the clock wasn't ticking. Okay, so the antenna parts are coming in Friday. and I'll do a little video on reconstructing that antenna. I've already put the parts together and tested it to make sure that it worked, that nobody chewed through it or anything like that. I'd like to announce that Dave Slaughter's Ham Pie software, that I did a special video on that where we interviewed Dave. It's now available for the PC. It's Ham PC Lib, L-I-B. It's Ham Pie for the PC. And the first release version of that is available. And you can, I think, go to my website and find directions to that website. Let me talk a little bit about my ankle. I did put a post on the chat feature of the channel. The channel has a place where I can post things like that. And I put something up there. What happened on Friday, and this is after taking one plane ride. My last plane ride had been September 29th, and then I got one last week. It had just been between my getting very sick and all of that sort of stuff. We took one plane ride, and then the pitot tube circuit stopped working. We had no airspeed indication, so we landed and put it away. And then I go and break my ankle. Went to Mountain Market in Ridgeway, and I got out of the truck, and what I thought was ice with sand on top of it, in fact, was ice with sand on top of it with ice on top of that. And I broke my ankle and sprained my knee. So I see the surgeon tomorrow about my ankle. That's the kind of fracture they say they often like to put pins in. And I am currently confined to a wheelchair. And I am a totally lousy wheelchair driver. I'm not supposed to use my left leg at all. And it's just a royal pain. Absolutely a royal pain. But that means I'm grounded for another 6 weeks, maybe something like that. So I'll have to find other things to do with the airplane. Speaking of the airplane, there has been the long-running saga of the tachometer. They never did fix it. They found me an optical tach. Sits on the dash and looks through the windshield at the propeller and counts the propeller's revolutions. It's quite active. I told you about the problem with the pitot tube, how that the plumbing for that split, so it had to be fixed. And I am searching for a tow bar for that airplane. It's supposed to come with one, but I'm the third owner, and I think the tow bar and the airplane have parted company many years ago. But I need one for that. So the airplane is flyable right now, unfortunately not by me. The status on the QCX Mini is that I've got this whole table devoted to it. All I have to do is turn on the soldering iron and get to work. Everything is, the instruction manual is there, all the parts are laid out, everything. So it will be coming. Now, I was going to do like a QCX Mini kit build video, and then every other day do one that wasn't about that, but was about antenna something. And I've noticed that not very many people are liking, no, the usual 99% are liking the video, but the views are pretty low on those videos. And there's Dan Trainer with $20 for channel funds. Thanks for all you do from WA1QZX. Very good. Now, here is something maybe you can help me a little bit with. I put up a video on why we use 50 ohms in ham radio. Simple video. Basically, Bell Labs did a lot of experiments with all different kinds of characteristic impedances on those video on those coaxes, and decided that 75 to 80 was about best for receive, and that about 30 to 40 ohms was best for transmit in terms of losses and things like that. And if you take the average of those two, it's slightly below 50. If you take the geometric mean, it's slightly above 50. So they settled on 50. Now that was the whole video. Well, now you know me. I can't do anything in 2 minutes. So I had some pictures and drawings and and things like that. And that video has had 124,000 views. 124,000 views. It's just absolutely amazing. I don't know what I said that made the thing go viral, but I would have expected 10,000 views, which would be more consistent with the channel for an antenna-related thing. It's just, I mean, I'm not arguing with it. I believe YouTube, all that sort of thing. But what did I say? Right. Yes, John, you're right about the price of a good quality CW paddle. The bencher for a long time set the standard. So you can be assured that the $150 BY1, Bravo Yankee 1, is fine for your work and will last you all your life. Okay. Grab bars. What I need is some grab bars for getting into the garage. Yeah. What is the most recommended way to get into QRP? Do you have a recommended rig and antenna configuration? There are lots of rigs, including lots of kits. A G90 will do a good job for you. Also, if you go to HFSigs and get the Micro BITX, it is an inexpensive and wonderful way to get into it. You kind of want to make sure that your antenna is reasonably configured. Some people do a buddy pole so they can pack it up and go walking. Other people will put up a dipole, some people a vertical, and so on. Some good electrical end-fed half-wave antennas. I would recommend the My Antennas 80 through 10 or the 40 through 10. I did a test on that fairly recently. It worked very, very well. And thank you for all the best wishes for a great recovery. No, that's not an IBM Selectric typewriter. That is a Smith Corona Classic 12, made around 1973. QCX Plus receiver. Eddie doesn't like his. 2021 was supposed to be a better year. Yeah, I saw a little joke where somebody said they tried the 7-day trial for 2021 and have decided not to purchase. So he's sending it back. Okay. Let's see here. These are coming in on the views. Yeah. By the way, I had been gaining subscribers at about 1,000 a month. I'm now gaining at 3,500 a month. That video has just really gone crazy. What's your opinion of the Chinese quad-band mobile? I will tell you that you're spending money for something that's not going to do you any good. It's FM only on 10, 6, 2, and 70 centimeters. There is very little FM activity on 6 meters. There's some, but very little. And on 10 meters, there's very, very little FM activity. So why not just buy a dual band? Impedance of a dipole is 73 ohms at a half wavelength above the Earth. Yes. And it changes dramatically as you move it up and down. At most elevations, 50 ohms is a closer match, but 75 ohms is still only going to give you 1.6 SWR. It's a good SWR. Don't see any Saturdays to live streams. I did switch away from the Saturday live stream. I had to simplify things, and so just had the Thursday night one. And thank you to Eric Richards for also contributing to channel funds. Okay, let's see. You gave good information that your followers did not yet know. Well, good. Okay, all right. Well, I appreciate that. First time live with you. Thank you for all your videos. Well, thank you. This is Dave, W1LRZ. Oh, the last thing I wanted to talk about talking about the one. I had a long conversation today with the ARRL. And we're looking at formalizing an arrangement with them for a couple things which we haven't agreed on yet, so I won't announce. But there's going to be a more formal arrangement between this channel and the ARRL. And they're very kind in answering the questions that I have. My Wi-Fi router keeps dropping connections when using USB data. Only 30 watts on 20 meters. Is this RFI in the shack? Yes, it is. The antenna's inverted L in the loft. Well, one of the problems is you've got just a single connection coming down to your tuner. And so you're getting, that's transmitting all the way up. It's an antenna rather than a feed line. And that will do it. You'll have to put the little snap-on ferrite beads around both ends of the USB cable in order for that to go away. And try moving cables around and stuff. I think I watched the 50 ohm video 3 times. Well, thank you. Yeah. Why would my signal be stronger when the antenna is on just a few threads than when I screwed on all the way on the HT? Well, it sounds like you've got a bad connector that's shorting that out. Because there's a little kind of a loop antenna in there, and it goes from the hot down to the ground. And so you are in a way, and from Mike Oswald, thank you, $10 to add. Is Heliax worth the money? Not in ham radio, no, unless you're doing moonbounce or something. Yaesu FTM 3100R for first radio. I'm not familiar with the radio. I think that is one of their handhelds. If you're going to get one of their handhelds, there's 3 digital mechanisms. There's let's see, Kenwood and ICOM use D-Star. Yaesu uses C4IFM. That's a military term. C4, whatever it is. And then everything else is DMR. DMR is kind of winning. Felipe Lewis, $49.99. Thank you for all that you do. If you were to design an AMSAT that would be launched in the future, what would you want the satellite to be able to do? Well, I got to tell you, a lot of the really popular satellite operations are the ones where you use an FM radio and you go up to the satellite and then it comes back down. It's a repeater. It's just a repeater in the sky. It would be nice if there was some way to do that with several channels rather than just the one channel. That's how I would answer that. You reveal hidden arcane lore. I seem to have a special memory for arcane weird facts. Okay, the comments are going by me here real quick. FT818. Is that one of the little, I think that's a mobile HF radio. Get the one with 100 watts. Don't get the QRP one for your truck. Get the one with 100 watts. Steve becomes first Crown Prince of ARRL. No way. No way. I actually have been to the ARRL headquarters. The building itself was closed, but the station was open. And I got a cook's tour from the station manager, including in the basement and the attic. And it was just absolutely fascinating what they've got going on there. But we'll learn more about this formalized relationship with the ARRL. It's coming up. There's nothing completely agreed, so it's all the dance kind of thing. Let's see. Chaitanya Godboli, I think he means he's about to take his examination very quickly. Okay, Winter Field Day is coming up. The quad band mobile is a great way to get a lower cost dual band rig that has a remote head. Well, there are a number of the radios that have a remote head. Note there's a problem with a lot of those remote head videos. Videos. I've been talking videos too much today. The remote heads often don't have a speaker in them. So if you tuck the main radio under the seat, you can't hear it. So you're going to have to put in a separate speaker or something to get it up there. A guidance for amateur operators during a state of emergency. ARES races are exactly the right answer to that question. They're slightly different from each other, but in practice you find out that their personnel overlap, their leadership overlaps, their planning overlaps, and everything like that. That look into ARES because that way you're coordinated with other hams. Okay, if you start your own little group, you have no idea if there is a problem, if you're just going to be chaos on the band. So ARES is the right way to do it. Ben Dillner has put $25 into the chat revenue and says, thanks for being the online Elmer I've needed this year. Wish me luck on my general exam next month. Yes, absolutely. Hope you recover quickly. 73s from KA7SLK. Thank you. John Hutchings said, which antenna did you like better, the W6 LVP or the MFJ? Not any real difference. However, I would use the MFJ for a permanent installation because it's really designed for that. It's not designed to be thrown in the back of a truck and taken somewhere. I would use the W6 antenna, W6 LVP antenna, if there were something you were going to move it from one place to another, like you're going on vacation and you want to do some shortwave listening or something like that. You can do that with that antenna very nicely. It's interesting, the chat revenue up here doesn't add up to what they've got up here. Okay. Are phasing controllers worth buying? Is there a better way to steer nulls? If you're going to steer a null, the nulls are very, very sharp. And so, like if you're using this receiving antenna over, where is it there? Right there. That one, it has a null through it. And it's an extremely narrow null. So you actually need to put the thing on a rotator if you want to steer the null. Now, a lot of the phasing controllers will take 4 vertical antennas on HF and push you into one of 4 directions. And the pattern is about 90 degrees wide. If you have more antennas, you can phase them better, but then it gets extremely sophisticated to phase the beams. Tycraft says, I'm new to all this. Go to KE0OG, KE0OG.net/training. KE0OG.net/training. Everything you need to know to get started is right there on that one page. There's a video that explains it. There's a book you get, and then there are a whole bunch of videos to help you with the book. There's instructions on how to find an exam session. Lots of talking about clubs and things like that. So, what is this fandangled new blue computer in the background? Yes, it is state of the art, I will tell you. Would you be willing to make a video on measuring the resistance and efficiency of a grounding system? Is there a simple way to do it? Yeah, I kind of talked about it a little bit, but I'll keep that in mind. I think that would be an interesting. Why is half lambda the preferred length for an ordinary dipole? If a person has the space, would a dipole that was a total length of 2 lambda have higher gain? Actually, no. 3 halves of the wavelength, 5 halves of the wavelength would all work, but not an integer multiple of a full wavelength. Will not. It has to be 1 half, 3 halves, 5 halves, and so on. Dipoles are your very basic electric field antenna. So, let's see. Headset. What are you looking for? Okay, a headset is like the earphones, except there's a microphone coming down here. Like my aviation headset has a microphone down there. And the nice thing about those, if you combine them with a foot switch for push to talk, your hands free. Hands are completely free. That's very nice. Switching power supply will work with the 7300. Actually, 20 amp will do fine. The one that is the reference power supply is the Samlex SEC 1235M. And I think it's a real nice power supply, very quiet. You can run both your HF rig and your VHF home station from that same power supply. Okay, I don't know, maybe I need to do a video on why half wavelength. That'd be interesting. Will the video tell me where to find the money? Let's see, the Heil Pro 7 is a good headset. Now, one thing you've got to do with these headsets, especially the Heil headsets, is they do not have a nice uniform audio response. So, and remember, a good audio microphone will capture from about 25 hertz up to 15 to 20,000 hertz. And that's not a good microphone for ham radio. Ham radio is 300 hertz to 3 kilohertz. Okay? And a normal equalizer kind of lumps that into one band. So there is an equalizer built into the ICOM and a lot of modern radios where they do low, medium, high within that band. And what I would do is lower the bass a little bit, lower the mid a little bit, and bring that high up, because that's where you find the articulation, the speech articulation in the high. And you'll definitely have to do that if you use the Heil microphones. Okay. Montana Joe has put $5 into chat revenue. And he says, thank you, Dave, for your videos. They were a great help for me when studying for the general exam. Best wishes and get well soon. Thank you. Let's see, Ron Champagne says he's in an RV park for the winter. using an IC 7300 and a high Q 480 and wants to get on 160. Good luck. The sheer size of the antenna required for 160 makes even greatly reduced size antennas are still quite big. What's better for DX, wire dipole or vertical? Well, conventional wisdom is that the vertical is better. If your antenna, if your dipole is at a half wavelength, it's Mach Nix really between the two. But if you can't get, now you can get a dipole for 20 meters. Half wavelength is only 33 feet, and a lot of people can get an antenna that high, and that will do well for you for DX. But a lot of people like the verticals, so I have used both. The reference station antenna is a horizontal antenna because of cost, just the cost. I mean, we're talking not quite, but almost a factor of 10 between the dipole, which is the $50 to $70, and the something like the AV640, which is like $650 or something. It's very expensive. You see the difference, and really, they're about the same gain. So why not do it with a dipole? Okay, what is the feed? What time did this stream start? It actually started at 6:45 Mountain Time. The first 15 minutes is just supposed to be informal, although the whole thing ends up being pretty formal. Can some switching power supplies be as quiet as linear power supply? Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're great. Now understand that nothing can be as quiet as a linear power supply because it has very, very low audio frequencies in there that it's dealing with. Okay, switching power supply does create noise, but the filtering is not perfect, but it is good enough. Good enough that you will not hear it. Good enough that it will not affect your operations. And so you get a cheaper supply, much smaller supply than those big Astron boxes, and you don't hear it. Some people have had trouble with them. My recommendation would be to go ahead and check the grounding, because it's the grounding that makes the difference. On my IC 7300, I'm using a Radio Sport headset. Works great and is comfortable. Great. Okay, MDR 7506 studio headphones. That's what this is. These are studio monitors. They're designed to give an extremely accurate representation of the sound being recorded and are used for studios. And you can see how much I've used mine, and they're due for replacement just because they're falling apart. It's what I've been using for YouTube all along. Okay, let's see. What is a linear satellite? Can several QSOs be on at the same time? Yes, absolutely. The linear refers to the transponder. Now that's something I think I'd have to make a video about. Let me just make a note to make transponders, what they are. Transponders are a wonderful creation. They've been around 60, 70 years. They have some drawbacks, but they've been in use for the first telecommunications satellites were linear transponders. Okay, Mach Nix. Oh, yeah. Let's see, you like this over here. It says 4245 MV, 45 amp power supply. Yes. DLO says I'm cool. Could you write a note to my children and tell them that? Yeah, the Sony headsets are flat and accurate and very good. Listened to Dave in the shower every morning for a month before I got my extra license. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yes, I don't know if I can get replacement cups for this or not. It's not an expensive headset. It's about $100. And for audio equipment, that's pretty cheap. Okay, I'm going to go over here and we'll look at some of the okay, this first one is from Marshall Harrison, W4MKH. He says he just put up an antenna called the ZS6BKW and had the following SWR readings taken at the high and low ends of the general band allotments from 80 meters up to 6 meters, okay? And his SWRs are ranging in the 2 region. On 15 meters, it's 2.8. So you need a tuner with your antenna, okay? Because those SWRs are too high for your transmitter to look at, so you need a tuner. Now, he says pretty good SWR across the bands, but I'm starting to wonder if SWR is the best measure to look at, and if maybe looking at return loss would be better. SWR actually incorporates that. It's a ratio between the forward and reflected power. So that right there will give you the forward loss. Now, understand how a tuner works. The power goes through the tuner, which, if you're coming back down from the antenna, you're looking at the complex conjugate impedance of the antenna's impedance. And so what happens is that energy that's bounced gets bounced back to the antenna, comes back, gets bounced back to the antenna. So it all makes it to the antenna, except you've got resistive losses in the coax. And that's where you lose. All that bouncing back and forth each time goes through the resistive loss of the coax, which is why it's generally considered best practice to try and make the antenna as close to balanced or as close to 50 ohms as you can, because then there's less loss in the coax. Some people who can't avoid the loss will feed their antennas with ladder line, true ladder line at 600 ohms or the window line at 450 ohms. And if you play with Ohm's law, the higher impedance means less current. Less current means less resistive loss. Okay? That's why the higher impedance feed lines have less loss than coax. Okay? So, let's see, who was it sent this? Marshall. I would suggest definitely a tuner. All things considered, you're doing it across a pretty band. I would do something like RG213 or LMR 400 or RG8, not RG8X, although RG8X works pretty good, actually. Okay, so I think that addresses that one. This next one is from Glenn, KE7FD, who talks about the fact that if you put, and this is a great segue from what we just talked about, if you've got, what your tuner in your radio sees, it tunes not the antenna, but the combination of the antenna and the transmission line. Okay? And unless your transmission line is an integer multiple of 3/2 wavelength, like half wavelength, 3/2, 5/2, and so on. Unless it is that, then the antenna or the feed line acts as an impedance transformer. Okay, so the impedance that you measure at your shack goes through an impedance transformer than your real antenna. Now, the only way that the transmission line will not act as an impedance transformer is if the antenna is exactly 50 ohms resistive. Then it doesn't matter how long the transmission line is at all, because it doesn't change anything. It's 50 in, 50 out. Okay? That's true of all transmission line impedances and so on. So he is pointing out that you can get remote antenna tuners. For some antennas, like the 43-foot vertical, you require an antenna tuner right at the base. I mean, it's so far out of whack that you've got to have it. You can't put any coax in there at all. Okay? And you can get these for long wire. You can get them for all different kinds of things. MFJ makes a series. LDG, I think, makes a series. There are a number that you can get that would be right at the antenna. So the feed line won't matter, because the feed line is 50 ohms at the radio and then 50 ohms right at what it sees as the input to the antenna. So, and that is absolutely correct, Glenn. Okay, we'll archive that one. Bill Mayer, no call sign yet, says he's subscribed to the channel, so he's an Augie. And by the way, that's OGGIE. I've seen a variety of attempts at it. It could be OGGY, but I made it OGGIE. Okay, I'm in the process of taking an online course to get my basic qualification for amateur radio here in Canada, hoping to write the ham radio exam. In the US, we'd say sit the exam or take the exam. Come spring 2021. The question I want to ask you is, do you know where a person can take either an online course or purchase a book about electronics and radio technician to learn how to repair, rebuild ham radios and other related equipment? First, let me point out that as a ham, you're the only radio service out there. Police, fire can't do this, government doesn't do this, whatever. We are the only radio service where we can muck with our own radios. In every other radio service, they hand you a radio and you use it as is. Like, for example, in my aircraft, there's an ICOM radio in there. And all I can touch is to tune to the right frequency and a volume control. And that's it. That's it. Now, since it's an experimental amateur-built aircraft, I can muck a little bit more. But hams can design their own radios. They can maintain their own radios. They can modify their radios, and so on. And that's the reason that we are examined, is so that we will be safe and legal. Safe and legal. And by the time you get up to the extra and they go into all that fancy stuff, so that we will know what the receiver and transmitter specifications mean and what they do, so that if we determine that it's out of spec, we can know whether we can use that radio properly or whether we will get spurious emissions out of the ham bands. If there's spurious emissions in the ham bands, the FCC doesn't much care, but your fellow hams do care. Okay, so the League has a couple books on it. I don't know how deep you want to go into this. I'm an electrical engineer. My master's is in electrical engineering, but it's mostly in space-ground communications. So modulation techniques, link budgets, things like that. I learned more basic electronics from ham radio than I ever did from my master's degree. Although, of course, in the master's I got the complex mathematics and the differential calculus and all that kind of stuff like that. Some of which I barely understood. I at least made it through the classes. Let's see. The League has a few basic radio books that you can buy that will take you through the more general stuff. Other things you can do is get the Radio Amateur's Handbook from the ARRL. And there is chapter after chapter after chapter that digs deep, deep into radio theory. Now, it's at the extra level, but it is not engineering. It doesn't have the complex mathematics. It just says, here's the formula for this. Without, engineers, they got to derive everything. So I can remember when I was at BYU, working on my mathematics degree, math textbooks have a habit of saying, it can be shown that, and then they dump this really weird equation on you. Or say, it is obvious to the most casual observer. I would go into classrooms at night, and BYU always left all their classrooms open so that you could go in there and find a place to study that was quiet. Libraries at colleges are not quiet. Too many people have library dates. Anyway, there would be blackboards on three sides of the room. And I'd start at one corner of the room, and I'd get my textbook out, and I'd write the equation. And then when it said it can be shown that, I would very carefully derive exactly that equation. So I could say step, 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 step. Okay, I believe it. Now, one of the funny things that happened later in my master's program was in determining the gain of antennas. There's a formula for it that we, of course, derived. And it turns out that the gain of an antenna, the frequency, is part of the equation. As the frequency goes up, the gain goes up. This is why a 40-meter dipole and a 20-meter dipole have exactly the same gain on their respective bands. Okay? And this is why a dish antenna is only 18 inches wide, which is operating up about 20 gigahertz. And the old 6 gigahertz satellite antennas were like 15 feet across. The little dish antenna has the same gain because it's at a much, 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 much higher frequency. And that is why your cell phone has what is equivalent to a gain, a dipole with some gain, because the antennas in here are very, very complex. But these operate at a very, very, very high frequency in the gigahertz range. And so you don't need to pull out an antenna like you used to on these things. They can operate just fine like that. And you think, this is a radio transceiver right here. Besides occasionally being a royal pain in the you-know-where. Okay, so go to the League for that. Let's take another one here. This is from Justin Gillums, KE0OG. Dave, I'd recently acquired my technician license. Congratulations. After watching many of your videos, I stumbled across your mention of being in the Air Force. It's got my curiosity going, which led me to your website. I was wondering what AFSC, Air Force Specialty Code, you were. I was a 3034. That was, how many years ago? Gosh, I got out of the service 41 years ago. So the codes have all changed, I'm sure. Back at that time, the enlisted codes were 5 digits. The officer codes were 4 digits. And I was an officer. I got out as a captain. 3034 was communications and radar. Radar maintenance officer. And I was at a radar site. We had a ground air transmitter receiver site. We had a power plant. We had height finder radar, and we had dual use with the FAA of a search radar. This was in Tampa, Florida. I fought that Cold War, I tell you. Okay, and he lives in Pagosa Springs, and so that's just over the hill from here. So very good. Okay, we'll archive that. This is from, oh man, that's a complicated one. Let's see, I'm a senior, live in Orillock, Ontario, Canada. Been licensed, recently gotten ham gear back on the air. Small town lot, antenna space is limited. Don't really even have enough space to lay out an adequate amount of radios for vertical. Well, because of the counterpoise arrangement and matching network, we decided to buy Cushcraft R8, which is a fine antenna. I had the R7 in its time, and it was a fabulous antenna and does not need radios. But you do want to get it up off the ground a little bit. I have a very sturdy all-wood garden shed that would nicely accommodate my R8 and plan to secure an upright 10-foot 4x4 wooden timber to the wall of the shed and a U-bolt. Okay. 7 counterpoise radials would be well clear of the peak of the roof. Okay, I don't think that's strong enough. You got to understand this idea of a lever arm. If you've got a pivot point down here and you've got a lever way up here, it takes like a pound of weight up there to give you a 100-pound crunch down here. So you will want to guy your antenna with rope. Okay, question is, if I were to secure a number 8 bare copper wire to the existing ground pipe, connect the other end to the metal part of the R8 base, would that be an adequate grounding system? Yes. Can't climb easily, however, I'm confident in my ability to do all of what proposed by myself. You know, Tom, I am going to recommend that you not do it by yourself. You're talking about ladder work. You're talking about an R8, which if you hold it in the middle, it's real easy to hold. But if you hold it at the end, like I said, that top is way up there. And when that wants to fall down a little bit, you will not be strong enough to stop it. This type of antenna installation should be 2 people and a third person, safety observer, whose sole job is to call 911 in the event of an accident. Okay? Because too many people rush to help and nobody calls 911. So I would recommend that you get your local club. Okay? There's got to be a ham club there somewhere. Or use your favorite handyman or something to put this thing up. And I do really recommend you guy it somewhere up about a third down from the top. Guy it so that the wind, because otherwise the wind is just going to break. It'll either break it or just bend right there. So, and it looks like you're going to get it high enough in the air. So Tom, that is what I would say to you. We are, I really recommend that you do get some help with that project. I was 462XX in the Air Force a long time ago. Over the horizon radar, yes. Yes, good old 400 hertz. That's on airplanes. The Boeing aircraft today, whatever, still use that 400 hertz. You can hear it in the headphones. It's fairly high-pitched signal because middle C is only about 256. 400 hertz is for 40 hertz is A above middle C. So it'd be about G, somewhere in there. Isn't there mathematics that show The more wire you have in an electrical field, the more energy you can absorb? No. The optimum piece of wire to put in the electric field is a dipole. Now, what you do is if you put other dipoles in an arrangement like a Yagi, you affect the pattern of the driven element so that it just mostly goes in one direction and receives in that direction too. But RF fields don't behave like we think they might. They're a little different. And this, you're in ham radio for a while. Yeah, you know, David, I'm seeing your comment on the hammer ribbon ink transfer paper absorption. You can't get good typing paper anymore. The only kind of paper you can get is copy paper, which is made for copiers and printers. And when I have typed with this thing on good quality paper, it's beautiful. Beautiful result. But on normal copy paper, it looks kind of smudged and not very regular. Have you used an infrared antenna for 80 through 10? Thinking of an Ultimax, probably works fine. The one I tested and did the video on is the My Antennas end-fed half-wave, EFHW 8010. And I was amazed how well it performed. Here is a recommendation for a book by Andrew Emerson. Arecibo was a huge dish. Yes, that's the collection area. But do you know what was at the collection point at Arecibo? A dipole. It was about that long. Okay? And that was the collection point. All that energy came up and hit that dipole. And then it went down a waveguide till it got to the receiver. But yeah, poor Arecibo. I think it's beyond... they'd have to take everything out of there and completely re-engineer it. Completely re-engineer it. And the Chinese have got a big working telescope now. So let's see. Yeah. Can a rhombic antenna be used for 20 meters? Absolutely, it can. Now note that rhombics are not dipoles. Okay, they're wave antennas. A dipole is an electrical field antenna. It excites the electrical field. And it does it by creating waves off the side of it, which radiate off the side and up and everything. And they get all confused around the end and so on. A wave antenna, the metal in the antenna actually runs in the direction of the propagation of the wave. And you can have an open V, or you can complete the V and get a rhombic. Rhombics are famous in ham radio back when hams had lots of space. W6AM was the ham. Look him up sometime, just W6AM on Google, and find out what he did. Optical Man Jeff, thank you very much, says, thanks Dave, take care of that leg. Okay, and let me make sure I didn't skip somebody here. Probably did. CQing the ISS with an HT, it can be done, but usually a little beam would do you better. How much amperage would you recommend for 5 hours SSB voice during the field day at the end of the month? Well, I mean, if you're using a regular power supply, your HF radio needs 20, sometimes a little bit more. Go with 25 if you're just going to run the HF. If you're going to use a storage battery, one of the marine batteries from Walmart, if it's new, fully charged with a proper charger, will probably run your radio all day at full power. Okay, let's see. What about to use the general aviation headset and ham? I've thought of that, and I've asked about it. The wiring diagram is different, and it's a different kind of microphone. It's a carbon microphone. There's a lot of stuff in aviation that still comes from the 1930s. For example, my aircraft has a Jabiru engine in it, Jabiru 3300. It's from Australia. The ignition source is a magneto. Do you know how long ago the automotive industry gave up on magnetos? But it's a magneto. There's just a tremendous amount of inertia in terms of the technology and so on. Okay, SWR, well, it's a standing wave ratio. It takes the forward and the reflected and does a non-trivial ratio on that, transmitting upper sideband data on 20 meters with the antenna mounted in the loft, which causes the Wi-Fi to drop out. Is this RFI or mains interference? It's RFI. It's RFI. Move your Wi-Fi if you can somewhere else in the building. Be very nice to your significant other, because it will happen probably. Okay, the fence is a giant ground system. Thinking of getting the G90 as a fun radio. I've got one here that MFJ loaned me. I've used it multiple times. I've done multiple videos about it, but I've never done the final definitive review. So I guess I should do that. And they're on sale now, which leads me to believe that the G100 or whatever is coming out soon. Let's see. I saw a lot of my YouTube colleagues on here earlier, all saying hi to each other. Let's see, don't get along with math. I don't know why so many people are afraid of math. It may have to do with its exactness, and human beings are not programmed for exactness. We go, it's about there. And another problem is that in ham radio, if you use the formulas are not truly complete. And so it's going to be an approximation anyway, so you're going to end up going like this and getting the thing tuned in. I majored in math all the way through college. I don't know why. Inertia, I guess. I've always been fascinated by the concepts. But I think that one of the... I don't know. I've just been fascinated by it. I'm terrible at arithmetic. But if you... Anyway, where was I? Okay. I use math to figure swings and sways and company inventories, so on. Yes, there's a... yeah, I know what you mean. You're doing queuing theory and you're doing... there's a whole theory of the optimum stocking level, and I can't remember if that's what it's... That's where I remember learning about that in the Air Force, the optimum stocking level. And then you get into service level agreements and what kind of service level you want to have and so on. I have been really nasty after my doctor's office. They have terrible phone service. Ideally, you should be able to call the doctor's office and get a human being 24 hours a day. Now, it may be that you're into the call center or something, but you get a human being. Man, not with these guys. Okay, let's see. Optical Man Jeff, we got there. Take care of the leg. Okay, we have gone 10 minutes over time. I apologize for that. I shouldn't drag you on with this. And David Wilson since 7:30. Doing my tech and general exam Sunday in Des Moines. Donation for good luck. Well, absolutely. And 7:30 is a 73. Good luck to you. And the very best. So, thank you all. Unsubscribed last week. All right. This live stream is dragging a bit. When did the dancing hula girl show up? Yeah, we are overtime. We are overtime. So I'm going to say to all of you, 73, and I'll see you next week. And I'm going to do a video tomorrow on the build of the QCX, and I'm still working on the video every day. YouTube really likes that when I do that. They start pointing more people at the channel. And next week I hope to have more information on what the ARRL has in mind for cooperation here. So with that, I say 73, and we will see you next week. Take care. Get on the air. There's a big contest this weekend, by the way. QSO party. You make lots and lots of contacts. It's stateside, but it's a good way to work on your work all states and stuff like that. So I'm going to click end stream right here.